All right, Peter, you ready to go? All right. Peter's excited about this conversation. Hi, Peter. Thanks so much for joining us today at the Watermark Water Cooler. If you wouldn't mind just giving the audience a little bit of a background of who you are and kind of your role at Watermark.
Sure. I've been at Watermark for 6+ years, and I started there as a graphic designer, but my role kind of morphed a little bit, and now I'm the lead developer on the digital team. So I work on websites and other digital projects.
Yeah, it's been really cool, by the way, seeing Peter's growth over the years. As he said, he was a designer with us at the very beginning, and he's grown into an amazing developer. And it's really cool to be able to see your metamorphosis, I would almost say, from being a graphic designer. It's kind of cool that you were able to bridge that gap too, because it is cool that you kind of have that visual side as well as this kind of very technical side. So it's great to have Peter on the team. As web has changed such dramatically over the last year or so, where do you see web development going?
Well, I think there's been a big philosophical shift in that, websites, because everything changes so quickly, it's not, you shouldn't consider websites being kind of like a one and done thing. It's more of something that you're continuously working on. Because there's really, you could split websites into kind of two camps, marketing websites versus kind of an application. So a marketing website would be a website kind of representing or selling a product or service, whereas like a web application, I guess to simplify it, could be more of like the website itself is kind of the product or service, but otherwise it's kind of like a website that does something. So what about, I think in the future is kind of combining those ideas of making marketing websites share some of the features of web applications and creating something more like a web app. So that means utilizing microservices, working with headless CMSs, not being tied into some kind of monolithic architecture, but being able to, using API connections, being able to bring in whatever tool is going to be best for the job when you need it. And also just be able to connect to all your different media sources if you're on different social media platforms, or services like YouTube or Vimeo, Flickr, just being able to integrate all of that stuff automatically into your website without double entry, and then just making your website smarter, utilizing analytics, inbound services, and thinking about accessibility. So there's a lot that's come about in that have become best practices for websites. So to reach kind of the tier above just being like a static marketing website, it's the future is embracing all these tools.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy, and to see kind of what's changed over the years, and you see what's happened like Adobe Business Catalyst, and there's other platforms that are kind of die because they are trying to do all the things in one place, and I'm kind of hearing you say that being able to utilize different tools to their best ability in an application that is reaching out to those different tools instead of trying to do it all in one place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what microservices is all about. It's like, take for instance, if you have a shop and you want to have a checkout service, well, you could use Square, that's a microservice, or PayPal, that's a microservice, or you could build out some sort of checkout system from scratch. But there are these other companies that specialize in these one things and continue to evolve their products. So it makes sense to kind of stand on the shoulders of giants and use some of those microservices out there. So whatever else it might be that you need for your website to kind of kick it up a notch to make it more of some sort of a marketing application, something that'll bring in more users or more traffic or ultimately more conversions, whatever that it may be. It could be in one of the many microservices that are out there or some sort of combination of those. So you can use that to better, make your web experience better.
Yeah. And so we moved to Contentful as our CMS. Why did we make that decision?
Well, Contentful is just one of a handful of CMS API first, or I'm sorry, headless CMS API first headless CMSs out there. So Contentful, it is designed in a way to which provide data in a clean API format and isn't concerned with anything beyond that. So whatever web technology you want to run your website on, be it something like React or Vue or Angular or jQuery or whatever it is that you want to run it on, the CMS is going to provide the data in a unified fashion. So Contentful isn't necessarily the only one that does that. Any kind of CMS or any API service out there, like I was mentioning social media before, but anything that could provide automated data connection, even a custom one, if you want to create your own database for anything, it offers a lot of flexibility and a lot of scalability. So if you do have some sort of feature on your website that is bringing in lots of traffic, and you want to expand that into some kind, whatever it might be, it could be its own little sort of social media service or anything. It's scalable. It could go from something really simple to something very large, just because it is built in a way that it's modular. So you can build blocks on top of each other, and you're not stuck into any one system.
Yeah, and I think that's the scalability is what we found was wrong with WordPress, and that's why we kind of moved away from that, was this scalability issue. As time rolled on, we were kind of finding out that WordPress sites didn't age well.
Yeah. So, WordPress gives you that concept of modules in their plugin system, but it's not, it can be dangerous. The way that their plugin system works, you can end up having lots of plugins that go out of date, and ultimately your site suffers either in performance or things just stop working correctly. And the amount of support for these plugins varies greatly. The microservices, it's a similar idea, but it's as if these plugins are much more vetted. There's a lot more support behind them. I mean, ultimately, you're paying for some of these. So, same with the WordPress ecosystem. You can pay for plugins there to kind of increase the quality. It's the same idea, but it's not tied to, you can only use it in WordPress. You can only use it with PHP. It gives you a lot more flexibility to use whatever else it is. So, JavaScript is all the rage today. It's probably going to be the dominant language of writing websites in the next decade. But even if that was to change, you're not stuck with just that, with the way that this flexible architecture is structured.
So the next kind of big thing that I think is so important in the web development process is what is that process? You know, having one. And so what's Watermark's process? How are we doing it?
Well, it's something that's evolved, and it's really this shift in philosophy that's happening to where, and I alluded to this earlier, that a website isn't really kind of like a one and done thing. It's not something that has a clear start and finish line. Technology is always changing, but the user base that's coming to your website is also changing. You know, the way people browse websites changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of different factors that can affect the effectiveness and the return that you're getting from your website. So a process that embraces that and is set up in a way for continuous improvement is going to be beneficial in the long run, because you're going to learn something new, some new insight each time you go through this iterative process to help improve your website. So it's a user-centered process where you through research and analysis are thinking about what is the intent of the people that are visiting your site. What is it that you want them to do, and what is it that they actually are doing based on analytics. So you consider the user, you analyze the data, and then you start prototyping out ideas on how to solve that problem. You end up developing out these ideas, and then you iterate, you test them. So you test these ideas and test their effectiveness, set some metrics, set some goals. If you're hitting them, keep improving on that. If you're not, try something a little bit different. But it's that is the ideal process to make sure that your website isn't just kind of a static marketing website. It is a marketing app. It's learning and getting better over time. It's getting to know your users, whether that's through analytics or customer relationship management tools, or some sort of combination of those. That's what's going to take your website to the next level, and that's why it should be a continuing, evolving process.
Yeah. It kind of leads us to another great question is like, you know, we talk about this process and how important it is in developing a really good site. You know, what should people be looking for when they're out looking for a developer?
Well, if you're embracing this idea of continuous change, then it's kind of like this agile philosophy then where really it's all about teams working together and building on ideas. So a good developer would be somebody that's willing to work as part of a marketing team to maximize the return on investment, to consider the ideas of the designers, but also consider the analytics that are coming through, and to be able to develop with those in mind and the goals of the user in mind. So that way it's somebody that is going to be on your team that's going to be building and maintaining a marketing app rather than just creating kind of a static marketing website. You know, so this developer might cost more upfront, especially when you're considering the team around it that to really get your best results. I mean, you're going to want an SEO person, designer, account manager, you know, so the more you treat your website like an app, the more robust of a team that you kind of need behind it. But the more you follow these philosophies, the idea is to get more qualified leads. So, you know, it might be more upfront, but you see that return by having users convert. So that's the idea.
Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned this a couple of times, but you know, web conversion in a website that's actually working for you is such a huge piece of the process. And I think that from what I see a lot of times when I'm talking to potential clients is they're out there trying to get the best deal for their website. And it's just like, it doesn't really matter if you build it, they will come kind of philosophy. And I think we know from years of experience doing this that that's just not true. We build it and they'll come is not real. You have to have a site that is actually working for, your persona types, working for, your goals, your business goals. And so I know that's something that Watermark really prides ourselves in, is trying to go through all those processes to build the best site that's going to work for you. And like you said, I think it's totally a piece of the conversation. It's not going to be the cheapest thing. It's, you just building it is one part of it, but following the steps takes a lot of work, a lot of legwork in the upfront and in the end. So that all being said, Peter, is there any thing that you would like to, tool that people could walk away from? I like having action items inside of anytime we have these. So is there anything you would like to share with people that would be like, hey, if you look for this or do this, it'd be a great thing?
On the spot now.
I mean, I think we laid one of the things out in Contentful, such a huge, I think we've found that to be a great tool.
I guess I was going to leave something. So the idea of a headless CMS is starting to grow, outside of just for content, your typical content managers. I'm starting to see services like Shopify. They're starting to move towards or have accommodations for headless CMSs, but they're also utilizing GraphQL. So that's kind of like the virtual database that you find common with these headless API setups, because it does a really good job of delivering JavaScript data of whatever it is that you're using. So, I'm starting to see the developer emails from Shopify say, hey, we were setting up GraphQL. Now you can query all your data using this. So it's definitely the way web development is moving. The idea of having your old PHP, MySQL stacks is, that's going on its third decade or so by now. So it's time for something new, and that new horizon is here. So, the sooner you can get on board and be a part of this iterative process, the further ahead of the curve you'll be versus those who have decided to wait.
Cool. Thanks, Peter, for your time. We are going to have these videos ready the second week of every month. So catch us in the future, and we'll continue to kind of see what's going on at Watermark and talk with a bunch of different folks throughout the stack of an agency. So catch you in 2 weeks, I guess.